Hello everyone, and a good evening. A single seed, buried deep in the silent, patient earth, feels the first subtle shift. The first internal crack that signals a change is coming. Let's be frank with the reality: our habits and thought patterns are silently holding back our potential. So, before we get comfortable, please take a quick moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. But only if you really love what I do here. I'd love to see where you are all watching from tonight, so please feel free to post your location and local time in the comments. And finally, let's end with these exact words. Now, let's turn off the lights, turn on a fan for some pleasant sound, and begin our journey for tonight. There is a feeling, a particular and potent sensation that many of us know intimately. It is the feeling of imminence. It's a quiet hum beneath the surface of daily life, a sense that you are on the precipice of a great change. It feels as though some vast cosmic machinery is turning, and soon, very soon, the tumblers will click into place and your life will shift on its axis. You feel it in the quiet moments, late at night or early in the morning. A sense that you are being prepared for something significant, that a breakthrough is not just possible, but inevitable. You are waiting for the signal, for the divine move. For the moment when the universe finally unveils its grand plan for you. You do everything you're supposed to do. You work hard, you try to be a good person, you hope, you pray, you wait. But the days turn into weeks, the weeks into months. And the great shift remains just over the horizon, a promise that is always coming but never arrives. The frustration mounts. The quiet hum of anticipation slowly curdles into the dull ache of stagnation. You start to question if you imagined it all. Was that feeling of imminence just wishful thinking? Is the universe even listening? This is the point where so many of us give up, convinced that we are stuck, that our potential is a locked room and we have lost the key. But what if we have been asking the wrong question all along? The great Viennese psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, Viktor Frankl, offered a profound reframing of this human dilemma. Through his own unimaginable suffering, he discovered a fundamental truth about existence. He wrote that we should not be the ones asking life what its meaning is. Instead, we must recognize that it is we who are being asked. Life, every single day, in every single moment, is posing a question to you. Your struggles, your desires, your feeling of latent potential. This is not a passive waiting game. It is a summons. The core question is not, when will my breakthrough come? The real question, the one that holds all the power, is this: life is asking something of you. What is required to answer the call? This single shift in perspective changes everything. It moves the locus of control from the vast, indifferent cosmos to the quiet, potent center of your own being. It suggests that the breakthrough you are waiting for is not an event that happens to you, but a response that comes from you. And the rest of our journey tonight is dedicated to understanding, with profound depth and clarity, what that response entails. To answer the call, we must first understand the terrain we are standing on. We must diagnose the nature of our stillness. The feeling of being stuck is not a personal failure. It is a universal part of the human experience, as natural and predictable as the changing of the seasons. Ancient wisdom and modern psychology both recognize that our lives move in cycles. We experience summers of flourishing and achievement, where our efforts bear fruit and growth feels easy and abundant. We move through autumns of transition and preparation, where we harvest what we've grown and begin to turn inward. And inevitably, we all face winter. Winter is the season of disruption. It is a time when resources can feel scarce, when progress stalls, and when the familiar routines that once sustained us are no longer effective. It is a period of forced adaptation, a test of the preparations we made in the more abundant seasons. Many of us mistake a personal winter for a permanent climate. We see the barren landscape and believe it will never be green again. We feel the cold and forget the memory of warmth. But winter is not an endpoint. It is a necessary phase of dormancy and introspection. It is the fallow ground from which new growth will eventually spring. Understanding this cyclical nature is The first step to removing the harsh judgment we place upon ourselves for not being productive or vibrant. 100% of the time. But what is happening within us during these seasons of stagnation? Why does the winter of our lives feel so inescapable? The answer lies deep within the architecture of our brains. To understand why we get stuck, we need to understand the neuroscience of autopilot. Our brains are marvels of efficiency. To conserve precious mental energy, they are designed to automate any action that we repeat consistently. Research suggests that nearly 40% of our daily actions are not conscious choices, but habits performed automatically. This process is managed by a deep, ancient part of the brain called the basal ganglia. The basal ganglia is like the subconscious operations manager of your life. When you first learn a new skill, driving a car, for example, it requires immense focus from your prefrontal cortex, the seat of conscious decision-making. But as you repeat the actions, the basal ganglia takes over, encoding the behavior into an efficient low-energy routine. Soon, you can drive home from work while thinking about dinner. Your mind completely elsewhere, because the habit has become automatic. This automation is a superpower. It frees up our conscious mind to focus on novel problems and creative thoughts. But it has a profound shadow side. When our habits are aligned with our goals, we move toward them effortlessly. But when our habits, thought patterns, our emotional reactions, our daily behaviors are misaligned or outdated, this same system of automation becomes a cage. We find ourselves stuck in a loop, repeating the same patterns day after day. Not out of conscious choice, but because the neural pathways for those behaviors have become so strong, so myelinated, that they are the brain's path of least resistance. This is the famous habit loop. A cue, in your environment, or your internal state, triggers a routine, which delivers a reward, usually a small hit of the neurotransmitter dopamine, feeling stressed. That's the cue. The routine is to pick up your phone and scroll. The reward is the temporary distraction, the fleeting novelty. The loop is complete, and the pathway is strengthened. Being stuck is not a lack of willpower. It is the result of a highly efficient neurological system running a program that no longer serves you. You are not broken. You are simply running on outdated software. The winter of our lives is this period of automaticity where we are living out the consequences of past preparations and past programming. The challenge, then, is not to fight our own biology, but to learn how to consciously and deliberately write a new program, to sow the seeds for a new spring while the ground is still frozen. If our state of stuckness is a biological feature, a winter season governed by neurological autopilot, how do we begin to initiate a thaw? We must dig beneath the surface of our daily frustrations and examine the hidden roots of our inaction. The first tool for this excavation comes from the ancient Stoic philosophers. They taught a principle of profound simplicity and power. The dichotomy of control. This principle states that in life, there are things that are within our control, and things that are not. Within our control are our own thoughts, our judgments, our choices, and our actions. Outside of our control is almost everything else: the weather, the economy, what other people think of us, and the ultimate outcomes of our efforts. The Stoics argued that the vast majority of human suffering comes from confusing these two categories. We remain stuck, anxious, and frustrated because we expend our precious energy trying to control the uncontrollable. We fixate on the outcome. When will I get the job? When will they love me back? When will my breakthrough happen? Instead of focusing on the one domain where we have absolute sovereignty, our own input. The great shift begins when we consciously redirect our attention away from the desired result and onto the quality of our present effort. This is the essence of what is sometimes called the wisdom of the elders, a timeless principle of preparation. Abraham Lincoln is credited with a quote that perfectly captures this philosophy. "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." The breakthrough, the felling of the trees, the final dramatic 1% of the process. The real work, the work that determines the outcome, is the long, quiet, and often invisible act of preparation. It is the sharpening of the axe. This idea of hidden preparatory work has a stunning parallel in the natural world. A piece of information that might seem strange or off-topic, but which holds a deep and powerful metaphor for the journey we are on. Beneath the floor of nearly every forest on Earth lies a vast, ancient, and intelligent network. It is not animal or vegetable. It is a fungal kingdom, and its body is a web of fine thread-like structures called mycelium. These mycelial networks are staggeringly complex, connecting the roots of individual trees and plants into a single, cohesive superorganism. This wood wide web, as it's sometimes called, acts as a subterranean communication and resource-sharing system. Through this network, trees can send nutrients to struggling saplings, warn each other of insect attacks by transmitting chemical signals, and sustain the entire ecosystem in a silent, cooperative dance. The mycelium itself is a model of distributed intelligence. It can solve complex problems, like finding the most efficient route to a food source, without a centralized brain. This hidden kingdom is the perfect metaphor for the process of personal transformation. The competitor's model you may have heard before suggests a top-down, centralized force, a divine mover who will one day intervene in your life. The mycelium network offers a different model, one that is more organic, more decentralized, and ultimately, more empowering. It suggests that the great power you are seeking is not out there or up there. It is down here, under the surface, in the vast, interconnected network of small, deliberate, and often invisible actions you take every single day. Each small act of discipline, each moment of conscious choice, each effort to learn and grow is like a single mycelial thread. On its own, it seems insignificant. But woven together over time, these threads create a powerful, intelligent network within you, a network that will one day support a breakthrough that seems to come from nowhere, but has, in fact, been growing. In the darkness all along, you are not waiting for a miracle. You are cultivating a network. You are sharpening the axe. We have established that the work is in the preparation, in the sharpening of the axe, in the weaving of a hidden internal network. But what is the nature of the breakthrough itself? If it is not a gift from an external force, then what is it? Here we arrive at the foundational principle of our entire journey, the intellectual core that replaces faith with a framework. The concept is called emergence. Emergence is one of the most profound and beautiful ideas in all of science and philosophy. It describes the phenomenon where a system of simple, individual components, following simple rules, gives rise to complex, novel, and often unpredictable properties and behaviors at a higher level. These new properties, the emergent properties, are not present in any of the individual components. They arise only from the interactions of the whole. Think of a flock of starlings. There is no leader bird choreographing their mesmerizing aerial ballet. Each bird is simply following a few basic rules: stay close to your neighbors, match their speed, and don't collide. From these simple, local rules, the breathtaking, coordinated intelligence of the flock emerges. Think of consciousness itself. It emerges from the interactions of billions of individual neurons, none of which is conscious on its own. Life emerges from the complex interactions of non-living chemical compounds. A traffic jam emerges from the decisions of individual drivers. In every case, the whole becomes something more than, and different from, the sum of its parts. Philosophers and scientists sometimes distinguish between two types of emergence. Weak emergence describes systems that are complex and difficult to predict, but which could, in theory, be fully understood by analyzing the parts. The whole only appears to be more than the sum of its parts. Strong emergence, however, is the more radical and fascinating idea. It applies to systems where the whole truly is more than the sum of its parts. The emergent property is fundamentally new and cannot be reduced to or predicted from an understanding of the components alone. Your personal transformation, the breakthrough you are seeking, can be understood as a form of strong emergence. The new you that arises from the long, patient work of preparation is not just a slightly improved version of the old you. It is a qualitatively different entity, with new capacities, new perspectives, and a new way of being in the world, that could not have been fully predicted from the individual habits that created it. This brings us to the work of author Malcolm Gladwell, who popularized a related concept in his book, The Tipping Point. He describes the tipping point as that magic moment when an idea, trend, or social behavior crosses a threshold, tips, and spreads like wildfire. The sudden breakthrough you feel is this tipping point. It is the moment when the complex system of your mind, your habits, and your character, fueled by the consistent energy of your preparatory work, reaches a critical threshold. It is a phase transition. Just as water, heated 1 degree at a time, remains water until it hits 100 degrees Celsius and suddenly transforms into steam. You remain you until the internal pressure and heat of your efforts reach a critical point, and a new self emerges. This is the aha moment. Your breakthrough is not an event to be waited for. It is a phase transition to be engineered. Your job is not to pray for a miracle. Your job is to patiently, consistently, and deliberately turn up the heat. The emergence is the natural, inevitable, and magical consequence of that sustained effort. To engineer this phase transition within ourselves, we must move beyond metaphor and understand the specific, practical mechanisms that drive emergence in the human mind. It is not a mystical process, but a biological one, built on 3 interconnected pillars of psychology and neuroscience. The first mechanism is the engine of change. It is the process by which we actively and consciously rewire our own brains. This goes far beyond simple repetition. It is a specific methodology studied and defined by the psychologist Anders Ericsson, known as deliberate practice. Deliberate practice is not about mindlessly logging hours. It is not playing the same easy song on the piano over and over. It is a highly structured, effortful, and often uncomfortable activity with the explicit goal of improving a specific aspect of performance. It involves breaking a complex skill down into its smallest components, focusing on the ones that lie just at the edge of your current ability, and practicing them with intense concentration and a system for immediate feedback. This is the challenging, but not overwhelming principle. It is the focused strain that tells your brain, this is important. Adapt. When you engage in this kind of practice, you are physically changing your brain through You are forging new neural connections, strengthening existing ones, and insulating them with myelin to make them faster and more efficient. This is the hard work. This is the sharpening of the axe. But crucially, Ericsson's research found that even elite performers can only sustain this level of intense concentration for about 4 to 5 hours a day. This tells us something profound. The path to mastery is not about endless grinding. It requires a second, equally important mechanism. The second mechanism is what happens when you stop. This is the cognitive science behind why your best ideas often come to you in the shower, on a walk, or just as you're drifting off to sleep. It is called the incubation effect. The process of incubation involves 3 stages. First is the pre-incubation phase, where you immerse yourself in a problem through focused, deliberate effort. You wrestle with it, you struggle, and you eventually hit a wall or a mental block. This is the point where most of us get frustrated. But this is precisely where you must activate the second stage, the incubation phase itself. You must consciously step away from the problem, take a break, do something completely unrelated. Take a walk, listen to music, or get a good night's sleep. During this period of apparent rest, your conscious mind is off the hook, but your unconscious mind continues to work on the problem in the background. It sifts through the information you loaded during the focused phase, shuffles connections, and explores novel pathways free from the constraints of your conscious, linear thinking. This is why mind-wandering, and, especially, sleep are not forms of laziness in the creative process. They are essential tools for insight. During sleep, particularly the REM stage, the brain consolidates memories and forges remote associations that would be impossible during waking consciousness. You are not just resting, you are processing. This leads directly to the third mechanism, the payoff. This is the neuroscience of the eureka moment. After a period of intense practice followed by incubation, you return to the problem. Suddenly, the answer appears, seemingly out of nowhere, in a flash of insight. It feels magical, but recent brain imaging studies have shown us what is happening neurologically. In these aha moments, there is a signature burst of activity in the brain's hippocampus, a key region for learning and memory. Furthermore, the very pattern of neural representation for the problem reorganizes itself in your brain. You are literally seeing the problem in a new light. And here is the most remarkable part. Researchers found that having an aha moment when solving something nearly doubles your ability to remember the solution later. The insight is seared into your memory with a power that methodical, step-by-step discovery cannot match. These three mechanisms reveal the true rhythm of growth. It is not a linear brute force march. It is a cycle. First, you stress the system with the intense, focused effort of deliberate practice. Second, you allow the system to recover and process through the strategic rest of incubation. Third, you receive the solution in a flash of insight. And finally, you integrate that new understanding and begin the cycle again at a higher level of competence. Stress, rest, insight, integration. This is the sustainable, neurologically grounded pathway to engineering your own emergence. Theory is the map, but action is the journey. Understanding emergence, neuroplasticity, and incubation is powerful, but without practical application, it remains abstract knowledge. The grand journey of transformation does not begin with a heroic leap of faith. It begins with a single well-designed step. Here is a practical toolkit. A set of first actions to begin sharpening your axe and weaving your network. Starting tonight, the first tool is to become the architect of your own behavior. We know that our habits are triggered by cues in our environment. Instead of fighting a constant battle of willpower against these cues, we can consciously redesign our environment to make good habits easier and bad habits harder. This is about reducing friction for what you want to do and increasing friction for what you want to avoid. If you want to exercise in the morning, lay out your gym clothes the night before. The friction of having to find them in the morning is gone. If you want to read more, put a book on your pillow. You have to physically move it to go to sleep. A powerful technique for installing new behaviors is called habit stacking. You anchor a new, desired habit to a stable, existing one. For example, after I brush my teeth in the morning, my existing habit, I will meditate for 1 minute, my new habit. The cue for the new habit is the completion of the old one. Start incredibly small. The goal is not to meditate for an hour. The goal is to build the identity of someone who meditates. Make it so easy you can't say no. The second tool is to apply the principles of deliberate practice to a skill that matters to you. First, get motivated. Choose an area of your life where you have a genuine desire to improve. Deliberate practice is too effortful to sustain for something you don't care about. Second, set hyper-specific, realistic goals. Get better at writing is a wish, not a goal. A deliberate practice goal is, I will write for 15 minutes every morning, focusing specifically on using stronger verbs and eliminating passive voice. You have broken down the skill and targeted a tiny, measurable component. Third, and this is crucial, you must create a feedback loop. You need immediate information on how you are doing. This could come from a coach, a mentor, an app, or a system of self-assessment. Without feedback, you are just practicing, not deliberately practicing. You are reinforcing existing patterns, not improving them. The third tool is a powerful mental exercise from Stoic philosophy. It is called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. This is not pessimism. It is a form of psychological vaccination. Each day, take a few moments to visualize what could go wrong in your plans. What obstacles might you face? How might you fail? Then, visualize yourself responding to these challenges with calm, reason, and resourcefulness. As the philosopher Seneca wrote, everyone faces up more bravely to a thing for which he has long prepared himself. By rehearsing adversity in your mind, you strip it of its power to shock and demoralize you. When obstacles inevitably arise, you will not be caught off guard. You will have a plan. You will be prepared. These three tools, habit, architecture, deliberate practice, and stoic mindframing, are the initial threads of your mycelial network. They are small, they are quiet, they are within your control. But their consistent application is what begins to turn up the heat, initiating the slow, deep process of emergence. As you begin to apply these tools and walk this path of deliberate growth, you will inevitably encounter resistance. You will face setbacks, failures, frustrations, and pain. Our modern culture teaches us to view these obstacles as signs that we should stop, that we have chosen the wrong path. But the philosophy of emergence and the wisdom of the ancients teach the exact opposite. The obstacle is not in the way. The obstacle is the way. This is more than just a clever phrase. It is a fundamental reframing of your relationship with difficulty. It suggests that the challenges you face are not unfortunate side effects of the journey. They are the raw material of the journey itself. They are the friction required for growth, the weight that builds the muscle. To truly grasp this, we must move beyond the popular concept of resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity, to withstand shocks, and return to your original state. It is an admirable and necessary quality. But there is a deeper, more powerful concept. Articulated by the thinker Nassim Nicholas Taleb, he calls it anti-fragility is the property of systems that do not just resist shocks, but actually benefit from them. They grow stronger, more capable, and more intelligent when exposed to volatility, randomness, disorder, and stresses. The resilient resists shocks and stays the same. The antifragile gets better. Think of your muscles. If you never stress them, they atrophy and become weak. When you lift a heavy weight, you create microscopic tears in the muscle fibers. The body, in response, does not just repair the tears. It overcompensates, building the muscle back stronger than it was before. The stressor leads to growth. Your immune system is antifragile. Exposure to a pathogen makes it stronger and better prepared for future attacks. A life without stresses, without shocks, without failures, is a fragile life. An antifragile life understands that these things are not just to be endured, but are necessary inputs for evolution. When you fail at a task, you are not just failing. You are receiving priceless data about what doesn't work. When you face criticism, you are not just being attacked. You are being given an opportunity to test your convictions and refine your ideas. Every obstacle is a dose of antifragile medicine. This principle finds its most profound expression in the psychological phenomenon known as post-traumatic growth, or PTG. We are all familiar with post-traumatic stress disorder, the debilitating psychological wounds that can follow a traumatic event. But researchers have found that for many people, enduring a deep struggle can also lead to profound positive transformations. PTG is not the same as resilience. A resilient person might weather a traumatic event and bounce back to their baseline because their core beliefs were not fundamentally challenged. Post-traumatic growth, however, often happens to less resilient people. Those who struggle rocks them to their core and forces them to rebuild their entire worldview. It is a process of bouncing foot. Psychologists Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun, who developed the theory, identified 5 key areas where this growth occurs: a greater appreciation for life, deeper and more meaningful relationships with others, a new sense of possibilities for one's life, a greater sense of personal strength, and a deepening of one's spiritual life. This is the ultimate evidence that even the most profound suffering can be a catalyst for emergence. It teaches us that the system of the self does not just require small, manageable stresses to grow. It has the capacity to metabolize even the deepest pain and transform it into wisdom, strength, and meaning. The obstacles are not impediments to your becoming. They are the very engine of it. Your system requires shocks to evolve. As the network of your new habits and mindsets becomes stronger and more complex, you can begin to engage with more nuanced and advanced skills. These are the tools of mastery, which allow you to navigate the process of emergence with greater sensitivity and wisdom. The first of these is the art of listening to the data stream of your own body. Many traditions call this spiritual sensitivity or divine guidance. Modern neuroscience offers a more grounded term, interoception. Interoception is quite simply your perception of your body's internal state, your heartbeat, your breathing, the tension in your muscles, the sensations in your gut. For a long time, these feelings were dismissed as noise. We now know they are a rich source of data. A growing body of research suggests a powerful link between our interoceptive ability and the quality of our intuition. That gut feeling is not magic. It is your enteric nervous system, your second brain, processing information and sending signals. People who are better at accurately perceiving their internal bodily sensations, such as their own heartbeat, have been shown to make more effective intuitive decisions. By practicing mindfulness, meditation, and simply paying quiet attention to your physical self, you are not engaging in some mystical practice. You are training your ability to read the subtle, non-verbal intelligence of your own biology. You are learning to trust the wisdom of your own system. The second advanced skill involves moving beyond the self and harnessing the power of the group. Just as your own breakthrough emerges from the interaction of your internal parts, a higher form of intelligence can emerge from the interaction of individuals. This is the concept of collective intelligence. It posits that a group of people, under the right conditions, can exhibit a shared or group intelligence that far surpasses the cognitive abilities of its smartest individual member. The key lies in the conditions. Collective intelligence doesn't happen automatically. It emerges from environments of high psychological safety, where people feel safe to share ideas, challenge the status quo, and be vulnerable without fear of punishment or humiliation. It thrives on principles of openness, where ideas are not jealously guarded, peering where collaboration is horizontal rather than hierarchical, and sharing where knowledge flows freely throughout the network. By consciously building or participating in such groups, a mastermind, a project team, a supportive community, you are plugging your individual network into a larger one, creating the potential for co-emergent breakthroughs that would be impossible alone. Finally, true mastery requires intellectual honesty. It requires us to hold our beliefs lightly and to be willing to update them in the face of new evidence. In the world of psychology and self-development, this is particularly important. It's crucial to understand that there is an open academic debate about the reliability of certain psychological findings. This is often referred to as the replication crisis. In the 2010s, researchers began to find that many famous studies in social psychology were difficult or impossible to replicate, meaning that when other scientists ran the same experiment, they did not get the same results. Famous ideas like power posing or ego depletion have come under significant scrutiny after large-scale replication attempts failed to produce the original, dramatic effects. This does not mean that all of psychology is invalid. Far from it. But it does mean we should be cautious about chasing trendy life hacks and instead build our foundation on broad, time-tested principles that have been validated across disciplines and centrist principles, like the Stoic focus on what you can control, the importance of deliberate practice, and the biological realities of neuroplasticity. Acknowledging this uncertainty is not a weakness, it is a profound strength. It builds trust, it encourages critical thinking, and it models the very essence of growth, the willingness to let go of what is no longer true, to make space for what is. What does it look like, this new self that emerges after the long, quiet winter of preparation? What is the afterpicture of this profound transformation? Perhaps the most perfect allegory in the natural world is the life cycle of the pure cicada. For 13, or sometimes 17 years, the cicada lives underground as a wingless nymph. It tunnels in darkness. It feeds on the sap from tree roots, and it grows slowly, silently, invisibly. It is in a long, patient season of preparation. Then, triggered by a mysterious internal clock, something remarkable happens. In a single season, millions, even billions of them, tunnel to the surface in a synchronized emergent event. They crawl up the nearest vertical surface, their old exoskeleton splits down the back, and a new creature emerges, one with wings, with a voice, ready for a new dimension of life. This is the image of your breakthrough. It is the shedding of an old self, an old way of being that was necessary for a time, but has now been outgrown. The emergence feels sudden, but it is the culmination of 17 years of darkness. The psychological state of this new winged self is best described by one powerful concept: self-efficacy. This is not arrogance or ego. It is the deep, quiet, and unshakable belief in your own ability to organize and execute the courses of action required to manage prospective situations. It is the confidence born not from empty affirmations, but from the lived experience of setting challenging goals and persisting through obstacles. An individual with high self-efficacy sets their sights higher, tries harder, perseveres longer, and bounces back faster from setbacks. They see challenges not as threats to be avoided, but as problems to be solved. This is the internal state of the person who has weathered the storms, who has hammered themselves into a new shape on the anvil of deliberate practice, who has become antifragile. They have a quiet strength, a calm resolve, because they have tangible proof of their own capacity to grow and adapt. They have built a robust internal network of skills and mindsets, and they trust it to support them. Ultimately, this transformation circles back to the question we began with. The true fruit of this long journey is not just success in the conventional sense, not just the job, the relationship, or the achievement. The ultimate outcome is the discovery of meaning. By turning inward, by taking radical responsibility for our own growth, by sharpening our axe and building our network, we have done more than improve ourselves. We have answered the question that life was asking of us. We have responded by being responsible. Viktor Frankl taught that meaning is often found in the dedication to a cause greater than oneself, or in the love for another person. The breakthrough, the emergence, is not an endpoint. It is a graduation. It is the moment you emerge with a new set of capacities, not for your own sake alone, but to be used in service of something larger. Like the cicada, you emerge not to rest, but to finally sing your song, to connect, and to contribute to the next cycle. The transformation is not about arriving at a destination of static perfection. It is about becoming a person who is capable of a more profound and meaningful journey. We have traveled a long way tonight. We began in the quiet frustration of waiting, feeling the pull of a future that seemed just out of reach. We journeyed underground, into the hidden architecture of our own minds, discovering the autopilot of the basal ganglia and the natural cyclical winters of our lives. We learned to sharpen our axe with the wisdom of the Stoics and to see our own hidden potential mirrored in the secret, intelligent networks of the forest floor. We replaced the idea of a random miracle with the profound, predictable magic of emergence, understanding that our breakthroughs are not gifts to be received, but phase transitions to be engineered. We built a toolkit for this engineering, learning to cycle through the intense focus of deliberate practice and the restorative power of incubation. We learned to not just endure our obstacles, but to welcome them as the very fuel for our growth, becoming anti-fragile, and we saw our transformation embodied in the patient, 17-year journey of the cicada, emerging from darkness, not to an end, but to a new beginning, ready to sing its song. The final piece of wisdom for our journey comes from the great psychologist Carl Jung, who understood the deep dynamics of the human soul. He wrote, "The greater the contrast, the greater the potential. Great energy only comes from a correspondingly great tension of opposites." This is the ultimate secret. The goal is not to eliminate struggle, to vanquish darkness, or to live in a state of perpetual, untroubled light. That is a fragile and lifeless ideal. The goal is to become a person who is capable of holding the tension of the opposites within themselves, to be both strong and gentle, to be both disciplined and spontaneous, to be both a master of your craft and a humble student of life. The energy you seek, the potential you feel, is born from this very tension. And so, as our time together comes to a close, perhaps the final act is one of quiet acceptance. The journey of becoming is not a war to be won, but a dance to be learned. It asks for your participation, your effort, and your courage. But it also asks for your patience and your surrender to the natural rhythms of growth. The seeds you plant, Today, through your small, deliberate actions, may not bloom for a very long time, and that is perfectly all right. They are not lost. They are simply weaving their network in the patient, fertile darkness, gathering strength for the season of their emergence. Trust the process. Trust the winter as much as you trust the spring. The tension you feel is not a sign that something is wrong. It is the sign that a great energy is building. You are not stuck. You are incubating. Be kind to yourself on this long and sacred journey, and know that the entire universe, in its silent, emergent wisdom, is conspiring with your every focused effort. Thank you for sharing this time. Sleep well.